Why ignoring uncontrollable problems makes you powerful. I was 23, broke, heartbroken, and sitting in the passenger seat of a beat-up Honda Civic that barely ran. The air conditioner didn't work. My phone had just died. And so had my dream job. Terminated with a one-line email. I felt like my life was falling apart in real time. Like I was stuck in a storm with no shelter. And I remember looking out the window and thinking, why is everything going wrong, all at once? Have you ever been there? But something happened in that moment that would change my life forever. It wasn't external. It wasn't money, fame, or a miracle opportunity. No, it was a single question. A quiet whisper in my mind that said, what if you stop trying to control the storm and instead control how you walk through it? That one thought was the spark. A seed planted by ancient wisdom. By the words of Epictetus, who once said, it's not what happens to you, but how you react to it that matters. I had stumbled upon the doorway into a new way of living. A way that would take me from feeling powerless to becoming someone who could walk through any fire and come out stronger. And today, I want to show you exactly how ignoring uncontrollable problems doesn't make you weak, it actually makes you insanely powerful. By the end of this video, you won't just understand why Stoicism matters. You'll feel it in your bones. You'll live it. You'll use it to transform your life. Starting right now. So let's jump in. Think about this. Every single day, we are bombarded with things we cannot control. The weather, the economy, someone else's opinion, the traffic jam that eats your morning, the rude comment on your post, the illness in a loved one. And yet, we pour our energy, our emotions, even our identity, into trying to fix or fight what we cannot change. Why do we do this? Why do we chase the illusion of control like moths drawn to a flame? Because we think power lies in domination, in managing everything. But the Stoics knew a deeper truth. Real power is selective attention. It's the radical act of saying, this isn't mine to fix, but this is mine to master. You don't win by fighting every battle. You win by choosing the right ones. Let me tell you the story of James. James was diagnosed with a rare condition at 27. He had two options: endless surgeries with no guarantees, or live with permanent pain. Doctors argued, family cried, but James made a quiet decision. He wasn't going to fight reality anymore. He would master what he could: his mind, his breath, his response. He dove into Stoicism, started each morning reading Marcus Aurelius, journaled every night, not about what went wrong, but how he responded. 3 years later, he was mentoring others, not because his pain was gone, but because his suffering was. He stopped trying to control the uncontrollable, and in doing so, he took back his life. Isn't that what we all want? You might not be facing illness, but maybe your uncontrollable problem is a boss who never appreciates you, a parent who always criticizes you, a partner who changed, a dream that didn't work out. You keep trying to wrestle the wind. But let me ask you this. What could happen if you stopped? What could happen if you stopped wasting your soul on what won't listen, and instead turned your energy inward, toward what you actually can shape: your decisions, your focus, your character? That's where the transformation begins. In the Stoic playbook, there's a technique called the Dichotomy of Control. It's not just a theory. It's a filter. Every thought, emotion, and reaction goes through one question. Is this up to me, or not? If it's up to you, take responsibility. If it's not, let it go. It sounds simple, but applying it, that's where the power is forged. Let me show you what this looks like in real life. Imagine your friend ghosts you. You text, you call, nothing. Your mind starts racing. Did I do something wrong? Are they mad? Are they okay? You spiral. But now, try it again, this time through the Stoic lens. Your question: is this up to me? Nope. Their silence? Not up to you. Your response to that silence? That's your arena. That's your battle. That's where your power lives. So you choose. Breathe. Don't react. Don't take it personally. You shift the focus from why did they do this to me? to how can I show up with dignity, no matter what? Now, instead of being a victim of someone else's behavior, you become the author of your own. That's power. But this doesn't come easily, because your ego wants control. It wants answers. It wants justice. But Stoicism trains you to ask a better question. What kind of person do I want to be, regardless of the storm? I want to tell you about a personal challenge I faced just a year ago. A business partner betrayed me, took credit for my work, spread lies. I was furious. I had receipts. I could expose him. But I remembered Epictetus again. He said, when someone does wrong, the harm lies not in the act, but in your judgment of it. So I made a decision. I wouldn't retaliate. I wouldn't obsess. I would let go, not for him, but for me. It wasn't easy. My pride screamed. My heart ached. But I focused on what I could control. My next step. My next project. My next words. 6 months later, his business collapsed from within. And mine? It doubled in size. Not because I won a war, but because I walked away from it. Here's the truth. The fire you don't feed, dies. The rage you don't entertain, fades. The drama you ignore, starves. And when you learn to ignore what doesn't belong to you, you get your life back. But it's not just about peace. It's about freedom. Because every second you obsess over things you can't control, you're in chains. Emotional, mental, spiritual chains. But when you finally release the grip, you step into power you didn't even know you had. Power to choose. Power to stay calm. Power to rise when others fall apart. That's not weakness. That's strength. That's Stoicism in action. Now I want you to imagine something. Imagine a version of you who doesn't flinch at criticism, who doesn't crumble when plans fall apart, who doesn't beg the world to be fair, but instead becomes so solid, so centered, so grounded, that no storm can move you. That version of you exists, and every moment you choose to ignore what you can't control, you move closer to becoming them. So the next time you feel overwhelmed, ask yourself, am I carrying what's mine, or what was never meant to be mine at all? And when you realize the answer, you'll feel something incredible, a release, a clarity, a sense of strength that can't be taken away. Because here's the secret the world doesn't teach. Ignoring what you can't control isn't giving up, it's taking back your power. How I survived the worst week of my life using one ancient Stoic trick, and you can too. Let me take you into one of the darkest weeks of my life. Not metaphorically, literally the kind of week where it felt like life had lined up every missile it had, and fired all at once. It started on a Monday. I woke up to a bank alert. Someone had drained my account. A cyber attack. All my savings, gone. Tuesday, my best friend called to say his mother, who was like family to me, had been diagnosed with stage 4 cancer. Wednesday, I lost a major client. They pulled out of a contract we'd spent 6 months building. Thursday, my car broke down on the way to the hospital to see my friend's mom. Friday, I broke down too, on the side of the road, in tears, in silence, just staring at the wheel, thinking, I can't do this anymore. But then, I remembered a passage I had underlined in my journal, something Marcus Aurelius wrote to himself almost 2,000 years ago. You have power over your mind, not outside events. Realize this, and you will find strength. I sat in the car, broke, overwhelmed, and on the edge, and repeated it out loud. You have power over your mind. Again, you have power over your mind. And something shifted, not the world, not my bank account, not the cancer, but me. I realized that while life was falling apart, I didn't have to fall with it. The Stoics never promised we'd avoid pain. What they promised is that we could endure it with grace. They didn't say, don't cry. They said, cry, but don't collapse. So that weekend, instead of spiraling into panic or pity, I did what the Stoics did. I simplified. I stripped away every should and every why me, and focused only on what I could do next. And that is the ancient trick I used to survive the worst week of my life: present moment action. Not regret, not projection, just action. You see, when we face uncontrollable chaos, our minds want to time travel. We jump to the past. Why did this happen? Or we run into the future. What if it never gets better? But Stoicism calls us home. It calls us here. Because here, right now, is the only place you have power. Seneca said, "We suffer more in imagination than in reality." And it's true. Our minds create monsters far bigger than the moment we're actually in. So when life goes wrong, don't ask, "How do I fix everything?" Ask, "What's the next right thing I can do right now?" One decision, one breath, one step. That week, I started doing just that. I couldn't fix my bank account, but I could call the fraud line. I couldn't cure my friend's mom, but I could sit beside her. I couldn't recover the client, but I could send 3 proposals to new ones. And slowly, day by day, I rose. Not because the storm ended, but because I learned to walk in the rain without drowning. Now listen closely, because this is where most people get it wrong. They think ignoring uncontrollable problems means pretending they don't exist. That's not what we're doing here. That's denial. That's fantasy. What we're talking about is disciplined indifference. It's not blindness, it's boldness. It's saying, "I see the chaos, but I will not give it control over my mind, over my peace, over my soul." And it's hard. Because the world will beg you to care about everything. Scroll through your phone, you're hit with wars, scandals, celebrities breaking up, political rage, AI doom, financial collapse. You are constantly being asked to bleed for things you can't touch, fix, or even fully understand. And if you don't set boundaries, if you don't practice emotional discipline, you'll wake up one day completely burned out and realize you've spent your life chasing storms you were never meant to stop. Marcus Aurelius, a Roman emperor, had to wake up every day to war, betrayal, and plague, and yet, he journaled not about those things, but about how to remain just, calm, and wise in spite of them. He trained his mind like a warrior trains his body. Because he knew, your peace is not a product of your environment. It's a product of your philosophy. And that brings me to something powerful I want to challenge you with. This week, I want you to try something radical. Keep a control log. Every day, take 5 minutes, write down everything that stressed you out. Then, next to each item, ask, "Is this fully under my control?" If yes, take one meaningful action. If no, cross it out, release it, mentally and emotionally. Do this every day for 7 days. At first, it'll feel strange, you'll want to argue with it, "But I should care, but it's wrong, but it affects me." That's normal, that's your ego talking. Your ego is terrified of powerlessness, but your wisdom is not. Because wisdom knows, peace is not passivity, it's precision. It's choosing your focus like a surgeon choosing where to make the incision. Deliberate, clear, powerful. And here's the irony. The more you ignore what you can't control, the more effective you become at what you can. You'll find more energy, more clarity, better decisions, stronger boundaries, deeper focus, because you're not fragmented, you're not scattered, you're not bleeding into the void. You're centered. Let me show you what this looks like on a big scale. There was a firefighter named Marcus who ran into a building to save a family during a massive blaze. He made it to the 2nd floor, but the smoke was too thick. He couldn't see. He started to panic. His breathing became erratic. But then, he stopped, dropped to the floor, closed his eyes, and asked himself, "What's the next controllable thing I can do?" He found the wall, followed it, room by room, breathing slow, no panic, just process. He got the family out. Barely. When they asked him later how he stayed calm, he said, "I focused only on what I could touch. I ignored everything else. The fire, the fear, the noise. None of that mattered, I just found the wall. That's Stoicism. That's power. You don't need to be in a fire to use it. Your fire might be divorce, a diagnosis, debt, doubt. But the rule is the same. Find the wall. Take the next step. Breathe. You don't need to fix everything. You just need to stay in the fight, without letting it own you. So let me ask you something real. How much of your anxiety comes from things you've already admitted you can't control? Really think about that. Now imagine what your life could feel like if you removed that weight. What if 70% of your mental load disappeared? Not because the world changed, but because you stopped carrying what isn't yours. That's what this philosophy gives you. Not a magic fix, but a mindset shift that changes everything. When you choose to focus only on what is truly yours to manage, your mind, your choices, your integrity, you unlock something that no storm can destroy. Self-command. And self-command is the ultimate freedom. The Stoics weren't emotionless. They were emotionally trained. They felt deeply, but they didn't flail. They cared, but they didn't crumble. And that's what you can become too. Not just someone who survives chaos, but someone who transforms through it. Someone who walks through the fire and becomes the flame. The shocking power of doing nothing. Why the Stoics let life fall apart on purpose. Let me tell you something that might sound insane at first. Sometimes the strongest thing you can do is nothing. Not reacting, not fixing, not forcing, nothing. In fact, some of the greatest Stoic power comes from what you choose not to do. There's a famous story about Cato the Younger, a Stoic senator in ancient Rome. He was a political enemy of Julius Caesar, and at one point, Caesar tried to publicly shame him during a Senate meeting. Everyone turned to Cato, waiting for him to retaliate. He didn't. He stood still, calm. He simply said, "We'll speak when words serve truth, not ego." That's it. He didn't fight Caesar's trap. He didn't play the game. He didn't react. He did nothing. And in that moment, he revealed something that left the room speechless. Real power doesn't perform for approval. Real power doesn't flinch when provoked. Real power chooses silence over spectacle. I want you to imagine a life like that. A life where you don't have to answer every insult. Don't have to fix every crisis. Don't have to defend your worth to people who've already made up their minds. A life where you don't live in reaction, but in response. And sometimes, response looks like stillness. And this is hard, because we're trained to think, doing nothing equals weakness. That if we don't respond, we're letting others win. That if we ignore a problem, we're failing. But here's the twist the Stoics knew. Sometimes the greatest victory is restraint. You see, when you react to everything, you're not free. You're a puppet, and the world, it holds the strings. But when you step back, when you refuse to be pulled, when you say, "I choose when and where to use my energy," that's when you become untouchable. Let me give you a real example. A friend of mine, Sarah, was in a toxic relationship for years. Her partner was emotionally manipulative. Every time she tried to leave, he'd love bomb her back, threaten to hurt himself, guilt her, gaslight her. She stayed, not because she didn't want to go, but because she thought leaving would make her the villain. Then one day, she started reading about Stoicism. And something Marcus Aurelius wrote hit her like lightning. Choose not to be harmed, and you won't feel harmed. She realized she had a choice, not to change him, but to reclaim herself. She didn't need to yell, didn't need to explain, didn't need to convince him of her worth. She needed to do nothing in response to his chaos. And so she left, quietly, firmly, without drama. She blocked the number, deleted the photos, changed the locks, and she told me something I'll never forget. For the first time in my life, I didn't fight, I just walked away. And I've never felt more powerful. That's what ignoring uncontrollable problems can do. It doesn't mean you don't care. It means you care so much about your peace, your soul, your truth, that you refuse to spend it on the unworthy. And this isn't just personal, it's political, it's global. Seneca once said, "To be everywhere is to be nowhere." And today, we are everywhere. We are fighting every injustice online, every argument, every headline. We are exhausted, not from action, but from reaction overload. But the Stoic warrior is different. They don't fight every battle. They choose their ground, and sometimes, they watch the chaos and simply breathe. So let me ask you, where in your life are you reacting by default instead of responding by design? Is it your phone, your ex, that coworker who always tests your patience, that internal voice that tells you you're never doing enough? Now, I want to introduce you to one of the greatest Stoic superpowers. One that has changed my life forever. I call it the art of the pause. It's the practice of inserting a moment of space between the stimulus and the response. Someone insults you. Pause. You feel triggered. Pause. Life hits you hard. Pause. And in that pause, you ask the golden question. Is this worth my energy? 9 times out of 10, the answer is no. And that pause becomes your power. It's in that space that you reclaim your agency. You don't give the moment your peace. You don't give the world your steering wheel. You don't surrender your power to things that do not deserve it. I've used this in business negotiations, in relationships, in arguments, even in grief. Because even in pain, I can pause. I can cry, and still pause. I can rage, and still choose. I can be heartbroken, and still act with honor. That's the Stoic ideal. And it builds something in you that is rare, something the world deeply needs right now. It builds stillness. Ryan Holiday wrote an entire book about it. Stillness is the key, but the Stoics knew it long before modern writers did. Stillness isn't the absence of motion, it's the presence of mastery. It's being the eye in the hurricane, the silent flame in the forest, the mountain unmoved by the storm. Stillness is what made Marcus Aurelius a great emperor. It's what made Nelson Mandela endure prison with grace. It's what allows you to walk through a chaotic, unfair, unpredictable world, and stay grounded in who you are. And if you want to develop that kind of stillness, start with this. Ignore the noise, focus on your principles. What are your core values? Your non-negotiables? Your true north? Write them down. Every time life throws something at you, ask, does this deserve my attention? Or is it a distraction from who I am becoming? When someone tries to drag you into drama, pause. When your plans fall apart, pause. When your fears scream for control, pause. And in that space, you will discover a kind of freedom that no one can give you, and no one can take away. It's the freedom of knowing that you don't need to fight every fire. You don't need to win every argument. You don't need to prove your worth to anyone. You just need to live in alignment with your philosophy. And that, my friend, is what makes you powerful. So let's come full circle. We started this journey talking about storms, about uncontrollable problems, chaos, pain, and the feeling of powerlessness. But now, you know something most people never learn. You're not powerless. You've just been wasting your power on the wrong things. Your energy is sacred. Your attention is gold. Your peace is a fortress. Stop trading it for scraps of control you'll never actually hold. Instead, protect it, channel it, refine it, use it for what truly matters. Your integrity. Your choices. Your purpose. Your growth. Your love. Your legacy. And whenever you feel overwhelmed again, remember this. The more you ignore what you can't control, the more power you will find in what you can. That's not an opinion. That's ancient, battle-tested truth. And if you live it, truly live it, you will become the rarest kind of human. Calm in chaos, steady in storms, free in every circumstance. A true Stoic. So I'll leave you with one final, life-changing question. Sit with it, reflect on it, let it work on you long after this video ends. What would your life look like if you stopped trying to control the world and started mastering yourself? This might be the moment everything changes for you. Thank you for watching. If this hit your soul, don't just like or share. Live it. Let's build a generation of powerful, peaceful people who walk through storms like mountains. Until next time, choose your battles, protect your peace, and become the fire.